Good day, grade 10 learners. You can refer to your resource booklet, page 4 to page 7. Okay, our topic is changes from adolescence to adulthood. We have discussed the definitions in our last meeting, our last audio voice note. We now look at the physical changes. And firstly, we realize that adolescence is the time in your life when you develop into an adult, okay? And this is usually between the ages of 10 and 19 years old. And what happens is we experience, both boys and girls experience an increase in hormones. Moving on to emotional changes. Emotional changes is normally when you start to feel and think differently. You worry about the way you look, and you start being very close to your friends. And lots of times you'll find that you listen more to your friends than to your parents, and you care about what your friends and your peers think about you. Social changes. These are relationships we have with others. You would find that the relationships with teenagers are often very different with different people. You'll find that you are closer to outsiders and closer to your friends rather than your family. You'll find you have lots of conflicts sometimes with your family members. There's lots of fights and disagreements with your parents, and you are more closer to people that are your own age. Friends are very important to adolescents, but they can make you feel you have to do something that you might not usually choose to do. And we call this peer pressure. Okay, we're moving on to the case study. Okay, I'm sure you read the case study. This is a case study about Luiso, who was not interested in studying, and he found his homework boring. And you find that his friend Tumelo, who was chosen to go on a leadership camp, inspired him to change his mindset towards studying and become more positive. Okay, we would now answer the questions. Number 1, how did Luiso benefit from peer pressure? So you could answer and say that Luiso had to now start doing his homework. There's a TR in this paragraph. He started doing better at school, and he even enjoyed his subjects because he now understood them better. Okay, you can write that last 2 or 3 lines in that second paragraph. Number 2, explain what success breeds more success means. So simply here, people, it means that if you are successful at doing something, if you have a sense of achievement and confidence, then when you try or when you do other things, you expect to succeed, and hence you eventually do succeed in whatever you are doing. Number 3, describe an example of positive peer pressure in your life. Okay, this could be when your friends or your peers motivate you to start exercising or start taking your studies seriously, or maybe even to stop a bad habit. Okay, so that's your own example that you can give me for that one. Number 4, match the words with the meanings below. Inspired. Inspired means to make someone want to do something, to give someone an idea about what to do or create. Okay, so that's C. Attitude is A. It's the way you think and the way you feel about someone or something. It's a feeling or a way of thinking that affects a person's behavior. And the next keyword is contribution. A contribution is something such as money or goods, advice, even your time given to help someone that is experiencing sometimes a problem or going through some sort of challenge. Okay, moving down to coping with change. We also had discussed this, but just to recap, we are all going to be going through some sort of changes now in this stage of our lives, whether it's school, whether it's friends, whether it's with our parents. So we must be able to cope with this change. And one of the main ways of coping with change is to communicate. Communicate with your parents, communicate with your friends, communicate with someone that you trust. It could be an adult as well. Another way is to maybe write down your thoughts and your feelings, and learn to be a good listener with your friends as well, and try and always have a positive influence on yourself and on people around you. Okay, now we're moving on to the next case study. Okay, we have discussed those definitions. We're moving on to the next case study. It's task 4. So you have read the case study that's on your booklets on page 6. It is titled Stay Away from Sugar Daddies. And for those of us that don't know, sugar daddies are usually older men that young girls have sexual relationships with, and most times it's for financial stability. Okay, let's look at the keywords. So we're looking at the word abstinence. And if you look at the word abstinence, it goes with C. It's to refuse sexual intercourse. Okay, then we're moving on to number 2, the right to say no. And the right to say no will be E, is where you refuse someone. Okay. Number 3, the right to privacy will be B. It's a time alone and space to explore what you are and to have your own secrets, and basically to have time for yourself and to explore and find out who you are and what you really want in your life. Number 4, respect for yourself and for others. The answer there is A, where you show consideration to yourself and others, people around you, your parents and your family members as well. Because lots of times we take our family members for granted and we tend to show outsiders respect, and we do not show our own parents and our own family members that respect that they deserve. Number 5, take responsibility for your actions. So what's that? That's F. So it's know that it's up to you to behave responsibly. Number 6, you have a right to protect yourself. Right to protect yourself, where you fight off sexual assault and you report it. So you have a right to go to court or to police station, or you have the right to report someone that is offending you in any way. And number 7, self-control is where you do not allow your sexual urges to run your life. You have control of this, and you do not make rash decisions, you do not make irresponsible decisions when it comes to your sexual relationships. Okay, now we are ready to answer the questions. Number 2. What is intergenerational sex? The word generation, people, tells you it's 2 different genres of ages of people, of groups of people. So when we're talking about sexual intercourse, we normally say this is a sexual relationship between a young person and a much older person. That's number 2. So that is intergenerational sexual intercourse, is relationship with a young person and a much older person. Okay, lots of times it's someone that's 15, 20, 25 years older than you are. Number 3, why does intergenerational sex increase the risk of HIV? So lots of times these older men, they are more riskier than young men. And why is this? Because they are more likely to be infected with the HIV virus or other STIs. And it is also a bit more difficult to negotiate with older men to use contraceptives. So lots of times they are carrying the virus and they refuse to use contraceptives. Another reason could be younger women may have had more partners and do not always insist on using contraceptives, and hence they may also be infected with HIV or with any other STI. Okay. Number 4, what is the role of sugar daddies in spreading HIV? So obviously people, if they are having a sexual relationship with these young girls, they infect these young girls with HIV. In particular, they may move from girl to girl because they are not obviously in a serious relationship with these girls. So they are moving from one girl to the next girl, and they continue spreading this virus. Then these girls also have sexual relationships with other men, obviously, yes, for money again. And you find that this virus continues to spread. Okay, number 5. Do you agree with King and doctor's advice to teenagers? Explain the reason for your answer. Now, if you look at your case study, the last 2 paragraphs, they talk about the king and the doctors speak about destroying, the youth is now destroyed with drugs and alcohol. And he also speaks about sugar daddies who are infecting young girls. And he says that they must stay away from these sugar daddies. And he says they're getting STIs and they're getting HIV. And he says that you must delay your sexual debut, and this would now prevent the virus from spreading. So number 5 says, do you agree? And I'm sure all of you said yes. And the reason for that is we as the youth need to look after ourselves as well as others. And we need to take responsibility. So yes, we should all avoid having sexual relationships until we are married. And this would help to stop the spread of HIV or AIDS. We must also say no to drugs and alcohol, because when we are under the influence, what happens? We tend to make wrong decisions, tend to make irresponsible decisions, and hence we spread the virus. So yes, people, we have come to the end of that case study. We will end there. Our next lesson will be on careers and career choices, but that will be next week when I send you a lesson on your on this chat here. Okay, thank you.